y'all, but you asked me,
Yep.
and I said, yeah, I'll do it. Why not?
So,
hey, enjoy your Sunday.
I don't even know how to start. What do we start about here with you guys? We just jump right into questions? Or we so, I guess I can tell people, I don't even know if anyone knows who I am. It's Brian Drummond. I was the original English voice of Vegeta for Dragon Ball Z. Unfortunately, created that insane meme that is now hats. Yes, that's all my fault. I said the wrong line. It should have been 8,000. We all know this. And then we did this show in Vancouver, Ocean Studios. And partway through the Frieza series, it made its way back to Dallas. And they set up shop down there. But surprisingly to a lot of people, we actually, a few years later, continued the series. I'm assuming Ocean had the rights to other areas of the Commonwealth, which would be Canada, the UK, Ireland, and a number of other places. We continued doing most of the rest of all of Dragon Ball Z. And I've actually at least recorded all of Kai as well, which has not been released anywhere to my knowledge. We're going to try and put the boots to somebody over the next little while to see if we can somehow make that version of Kai appear in some format for people. But I am yet a lonely actor, and no one listens to us about things that concern money. They just say, dance, monkey, say these lines.
I think it's always cool. You see, we did the version in Canada, and it's been dubbed all over the world. I always thought that they should dub it like even in the UK, even though they're still English. Like they should have done a. Oh, Vegeta, I'm gonna kick your ass. They never did that.
Well, and then you have a real reason to have a Prince Course. When Kakarot Boo! How dare you!
Hey, let's go get the paint. You know, go get the paint. I'm going to suggest that.
Conor McGregor style.
Conor McGregor does.
Did you hear about what happened last night?
Yeah, terrible.
Terrible.
Can you imagine paying big money for that nice 3 rounds?
He broke his ankle at the end of the first round, and it was a very disgusting sight. It was one of those sports injuries that you
don't want to see it.
No, it was bad.
Oh, yeah.
And then as he's being stretched out,
That's what
he's
people-
screaming at the other fighter, your wife is in my DMs. He's stretched out another fight, because they're going to come back and fight again.
Wow.
They don't care.
You
They
know
got
what
stuff.
that
They got
is?
stuff.
Classy. That's
Art.
classy, right?
Last week, take care of a fight.
Pay-per-view.
Yeah.
How to sell your Irish whiskey outside, yeah. Well, what do you want to do? Tell us.
Shall we open up to questions?
That's up to you. We
Yeah,
can.
why don't we?
Yeah, and questions for any of us. One that you two can answer that we can't.
Yeah.
I got
that.
Alright, so my first question, I just gotta say, I'm a big fan of you guys. Like,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
oh, absolutely. So my first question is, when you guys first did Goku and Vegeta, how hard was it to do their signature screams, for their attacks and stuff? Like the KamehaMeha scream, did you have to practice it over time, to get it right, or what was it like to do it for the first time?
I mean, we were not given any warning whatsoever.
No.
We didn't know what we were getting into. It was just, not to downplay it, but it was just another job, another voice job that you were happy to get and that is employing you. So we just kind of showed up, and I had a very vague idea what the show was at that time, not much. And we, but literally we were given the scripts, and it was dubbing, so we would be showing the Japanese clip, and then we had to dub it and match the voice flaps to what was being said. So we would overhear Mizawa in the background, not super loud, and then we would attempt to match the mouth movements and everything else and the screams. And I was just telling Elise that I wish they filmed us while we recorded it on a camera, because trying to match flaps, you look much like a cat that's looking at a bird outside a window. That's how ugly we looked recording.
That would be something else, actually. It'd be great to have video of some of those initial things. When we auditioned for these, you get a character description. I never saw a picture of Vegeta. I had no idea what he was. So people always ask, did you come up with a voice when you saw what he looked like and learned about the character in the series? We knew none of that. I didn't know. I'm like, what series? What is Dragon Ball? Who's he? What? I don't know what it is. I know it's a new show. I'm an actor. They said go audition for this. I know my sides just said he's an alien, which he is. So I'm thinking like little green man. I don't know what he looks like. He's an alien. He's a prince. He's arrogant. He's diminutive, and he's sadistic. So I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking prince. He's smaller. So I tried to find maybe a higher voice because he's a little smaller, and then they said he was arrogant, so I added a little more of an air of that princely way of talking, like he talked down to Kakarot, you fool. You know, I added that little, and that's how I came up with who he would be, but there was nothing about screaming and fighting. I had no idea there was even fighting. I thought maybe it's just conversational drama anime. And then a few episodes in, I'm like, excuse me? Yeah, you gotta scream from this, page to this page, and then these 30 more pages, and then into the next 8 episodes. And then that screaming will finish. What? 6 pages of screaming? And you gotta remember, we don't get it in one take. When you don't know how long it is, sometimes one fight sequence is like, well, you were like, oh, sorry, that was a little bit short, Brian, it's gotta be longer. It's gotta be a little bit longer than, over and over and over, you got to do it, and your voice is trashed. So there's no practice, there's no training. You're making it up on the spot.
And there was always screaming, like, with everything, right? It's like, oh, look, I dropped my pen. Did he have to scream for the pen? Yes.
He does.
Yes, he does.
Yes, right here.
With the screaming, how do you take care of your voice? Like, how often are you in the booth doing your lines?
It is difficult. When I started this show, I've told Danny this before. Early on, we have an actors union in Canada where we were working under a union agreement for this. But the union agreement said you could do a new series up to an 8-hour session. So we could work 8 hours on the show with an hour lunch break, about 8 hours. And this was the first show ever where I completely lost my voice. And that was on an 8-hour episode of doing Dragon Ball Z. After a number of actors were working on the show, they changed our union agreement that you could only do 4-hour sessions. So we can't do any longer than that now on a dubbing series at all. That's the longest you're allowed to do. And it's been better since then. But usually it's water is about the best thing you can do. It's hydration is the main thing you can do to protect it. But yelling is the worst. Everyone always asks, how's that deep raspy voice hurt, or the screaming or whatever? It's that type of voice doesn't hurt. It's yelling. Yelling is a type of voice.
And for me, the first few episodes we did, we were doing it chronologically through the script. So dialogue, scream, another couple pieces of dialogue, scream, and go through. And then by the end, my voice was shot and I couldn't do my lines by the end of the episode. And then they changed it. They said, okay, for the next day of recording, they said, we're going to do all your dialogue first, and then we're going to blow your throat out for 4 hours. So that's what they did.
Danny, I gotta ask you, and we probably talked about this before. What, when you first saw it or heard it, or like, what drew you, like when people are flicking through channels, going, what is this? Was it the fighting that drew people in, or the characters? It was like just hearing like crazy ass screaming. You're like, this is not on cartoons right now.
Well, for me, I had actually discovered the show in a magazine. I was a big video game kid, and it showed this promo for this video game that was Japanese only called Super Butoden. And the first time I saw Goku and the characters, didn't really know what it was. Then I caught Dragon Ball in syndication, not Z, the older stuff. And I love treasure hunting shows, like Pirates of Dark Water. Y'all remember that show that had no ending? Yeah, it never had an ending. And I love the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. Like, I love those shows. So finding, like, magical, like, I love Zelda, like, finding treasure and collecting it. So Dragon Ball was up my alley. But then all of a sudden Dragon Ball ended, because they only dubbed 13 episodes. And then Z started, so I kind of already liked Dragon Ball. And I started watching Z, and it's everything. It's just the way that, because Toriyama has a very distinct style where it's not really like anime, like traditional anime-esque.
Yeah.
You watch Sailor Moon, Inuyasha, they have a certain look to them. Dragon Ball looks like it's so unique. Not a unique look to it. It's not like your classic, it's like a cartoonish anime, but then it gets serious. It was everything. But really what I think it was a serialized show. And for us back then as kids, we rarely had those for kids. You know, Sopranos and Walking Dead and Breaking Bad, all those shows, you know, cliffhanger.
Yeah.
We had those Monster of the Week shows, Power Rangers, and, you know, even like X-Men had a few arcs. Dragon Ball was to be continued, to be continued, to be continued, to be continued, to be continued. And thankfully as kids, we had like, it was Monday through Friday on Cartoon Network. In Japan, it was every week since 86 to 97. That's like 9 years, non-stop. So, yeah, I think that's what drew me in, the cliffhanger. They knew how to do it, and they still know how to do it.
What I used to watch was Rocket Robin Hood. Anybody watch that?
Rocket Robin. It was like Robin Hood, but had a kind of a space angle to it.
I've
But it was
never heard of it.
horrible. Do you
Sounds
remember
good.
that show?
No, but it sounds dope.
It sounds good.
No, it was, well, yes and no, because the story would go for about, 3 or 4 minutes, and then cut to commercial break, and it didn't matter how many commercials or how little time had just gone by, they would recap the show every 3 minutes, and they go, when we last left Rocket Robin Hood, we just watched this 30 seconds ago. Here's a recap of what just happened. We
Yeah.
know what happened.
We're still here.
Yeah, the entire show, 22 minutes. I think you got like 5 minutes of story, and then last time on Rocket
It sounds like watching a home renovation show where they go back to the beginning
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about that is it's when you compare like Japanese to English culture and dub. If you watch the Z dub or any dub, it doesn't matter, Ocean Funimation, they always started with this last time on Dragon Ball Z, and then they show some footage and you hear the narrator talking. But if you watch it in Japanese, it just starts with the music, the recap music, and the narrator might have one line, but he won't say previously on Dragon Ball Z. It's like it's weird, like they know you're watching the show already, so they don't have to say that part, but I think they got the last time on Dragon Ball Z from like other Western shows, like before. Because it's weird, because like there's recaps of episodes of Dragon Ball Z where the narrator will have one line and just say, Gohan is angry, dun dun, and then we get the title screen. Meanwhile, in the English one, they narrate the whole thing, but I think it's because of like the older Western shows. That's what I think, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Questions? Let's grab a couple more. How about right in front of you?
How is your guys' relationship with your counterparts that also voice your characters? Like, is there competition?
I hate my variant, man. The TVA and I are gonna take him out. And by the way, my variant is everybody on YouTube came after me. I'm kidding.
How's the relationship with our other characters? Chris, Yusuf. No. Chris and I get along really well. I'd love to see him way more often. Geez, I wish he worked in Canada. We'd probably be working on shows together all the time. I just never see him very often, but we communicate once in a while via Twitter or text or stuff like that. And he called me, I think I met him in person for the very first time at the first KamehaCon in 2018. I think Peter were we at that one together there, Chris, when we went out for dinner with him the first night we arrived. So that was the very first time I met Chris, and he's a great guy. We get along really well, and to the point that shortly after that, the text came in, "Hey, Brian, there's this thing going on, it's really cool. I don't know if you want to be in Super or not." I was like, "What? You want me to be in Dragon Ball Super?" "Yeah, there's a super cool part coming up. Let me know if you're interested." And then he told me what it was, and a copy of Vegeta. He thought this might be really fun for the fans. So sure enough, I ended up doing a copy of Vegeta because he gave me a call. I recorded everything in Vancouver, and I was directed by a Funimation director from down here who directed online via Skype or something, and recorded in a studio in Vancouver, sent all the files down, and they did all the editing at Funimation down here. So yeah, we have a great relationship. It's fun, and of course I met Ryo Morikawa at this convention, which was a fabulous guy, just such a great guy. So, and I've met the Spanish Vegeta as well. Yeah, Renee, who's here too, who's a great guy as well. So, yeah, I'm happy to anybody to take on the role. I'd love to meet anyone. I've always sort of said I'm a fan of I like James Bond, but I'm a fan of certain type of James Bond. I really love the Daniel Craig's. He's a great version. I was never really a Sean Connery guy because that's kind of early, but that's all still the same character. Doing different movies, and you can choose your own and be happy. But all those guys were still James Bond, and you might say your Bond was way better than. I always like to tell people to say, in my opinion, my favorite James Bond is whatever, as opposed to always having to say better or worse than. Your Vegeta's better than Sabat's. Your Vegeta. No, just say the one that appeals to me the most is yours. That's the way that you're not having to put someone else down and say one's better than the other. And I get along very well.
Sure.
I know that the Gokus that recorded out of Vancouver, they're good friends of mine. I took over from Ian, but meaning our friends. Kirby Morrow, God rest his soul, great guy. And I'm sorry, I didn't expect to get a little emotional. I just thought I should be back there. So.
Yeah. Thanks to everybody who signed something for Kirby Morrow there. We worked a lot with Kirby Morrow in Vancouver over the years, and he's a really great cat. Worked with him on Ninjago and a really, really fabulous, fun dude to be around. Just a really fun guy. So we were all surprised by his passing recently at a very young age.
Absolutely. As far as like Sean doing the character now, there's been a lot of stuff online and comparisons and, hey, who's better Goku, Sean or Peter? I have never had any beef with Sean. I think he does a great job in the role. He's done it much longer than I have. I think he probably gets more abuse online than I ever have. He's done it longer. Whether that's warranted or not, that's between him and his fans. I don't really know. There's no personal beef at all with me. If he has a problem with other Gokus, that would be a question for him, but there certainly isn't any shade coming from me to him. I know there was an issue here a couple years ago with invites to the convention, and a lot was said, and I don't need to get into it because it's been dealt with, and I just kind of want to move on from it. But I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be part of the history of the show, and what else can I say? Yeah.
We love you, Sean. Let's do dinner again. Come on, whoever's recording this. Come on, we're going for dinner tonight. One time. Sean, we love you, man.
I haven't told you this yet. I found out about Kirby from Sean. Because Sean sent me a DM or a text and was like, yo, is it true that Kirby Morrow passed? And I was like, is it? And I remember I DM'd you. I think I DM'd you and Ian. And I said, is this true? And then the news started coming out. And I remember, because Sean at one point did have like a Twitter disagreement with Kirby. And I remember this is the truth, weeks and days after he would talk to me, and he felt, that weird feeling when you want to resolve it with somebody and you don't get a chance to? Like he felt that remorse. And he was like, man, this guy was so young and this and that. And I don't want to go into the specifics, but it actually hit him more than I thought it did. Like I remember that passing hit him more than I thought it would. People on the internet are never going to understand what really goes on inside people's heart, like you guys or mine or any of these actors. They have no clue what's really going on. They have no idea.
I appreciate the
and
question.
That's okay.
Appreciate the question.
Yeah,
I get a chance to talk about that because it's on a lot of people's minds, and even people come to the table ask,
Everyone's human.
People, it's more interesting when there's tension, I guess, from people's perspective. But
no one watches Big Brother if everyone gets along, But to be honest, the voiceover community is amazing. It's one of the reasons why I trained in theater. I did toured theater and did theater in Vancouver. Did small roles in film and TV and all the stuff in the early '90s. It was in Vancouver, like X-Files and Smallville and Stargate and all that type of stuff was in Vancouver. But I felt the most comfortable when I started booking voiceover gigs because everybody was there was just no egos at all. I was just, nobody here is acting like I'm better than you, and not even the directors, the actors, even when someone like, when I started, Scott McNeil was like the god of voiceover, and he was cool with me, you know, and I never really had any issue with most people. I could probably count on my one hand any kind of, you know, heated moments in 30 years. This is my 30th year as a professional actor. Raise the door for dinner with any one of them, and they're just casual, great folks. I love it.
Maybe we have a question over here?
I have a question for Brian.
Yeah.
Which character did you like playing the most, Vegeta or Ryuk from Death?
Vegeta or Ryuk. I get this one sometimes. Vegeta is likely my favorite anime character. Not to do though. for the screaming reasons we talked about, I would always be, if when an agent would call, you've got a Dragon Ball session on Thursday, I'd be like, no, it's not like I got, woo, another Dragon Ball. I would really not be that excited about it, because I work on a lot of other shows, and it is a voice trasher. It is a voice trasher, so I try to, and I do them on Fridays, because then I have like 2 days for my voice to recuperate to do anything else the following week. Please don't book me for Dragon Ball on a Monday, because then I'm wrecked. So it's a really hard show to do. It's exhausting. I'm a pool of sweat. I'm screaming. Ryu, on the other hand, is, you know, he's kind of watching the scene and gently kind of, you know, seeing what's going on. He gets a little excited in a couple scenes, but he's never yelling through for episodes of noises. So I really enjoyed doing that one, because I could kind of watch the story play out, because he's sort of like almost like the puppet master, just kind of seeing what's happening. So that one to do was the most fun. Vegeta is still my favorite character, man.
I have a follow-up.
Yeah.
Rolf or Goku? Which is more for you?
Oh. Fun, I mean, from a fun perspective, I mean, it's arguable who's more iconic. I mean, here we are at a Dragon Ball Z convention, that, you know, a role that I last voiced over 20 years ago. So that's incredible. It's incredible that I get invited, and I thank you for that. So the iconicness of Goku is timeless. Rolf, on the other hand, just was a blast. We barely got through sessions, and we'd be laughing so hard at each other. Primarily with the Rolf lines. I was given lines that were just inherently ridiculous and hilarious at the same time. So I would crack up reading my own lines.
So, just out of curiosity, how would it sound if, in World's Strongest, when Goku tells that he kills one of Dr. Rito's robots, and he says that Tumblear was a good warm-up, how would Rolf say that? That Tumblear was a good warm-up is the line.
That tub of lard was much like Nana's rear end.
Let's go to another question. Let's grab something back. In the white shirt, maybe.
Did you watch it?
So, how does it feel knowing that, like, after 20 years of not voicing Dragon Ball, that you guys got asked back to the first convention, and now second, and now third, to be like, really? They still want us to come back?
You know, it's I don't know, it takes you back to, was it Sally Field at the Academy Awards in the 70s when she got an award, and she's like, you like me, you really like me. In a not so different way, you get that feeling. It's like, when we have, every time I have somebody come up and say, look, you're a part of my childhood, or you're a fond memory from my childhood, it feels good, man. I'm not gonna lie. It's great to be a part of somebody's childhood. That's a pretty big compliment.
And when you hear how much it changes some people's lives, and you know, to start something, to be part of a show that, you know, the work we did that sort of got that ball rolling in North America, not that it wouldn't have without us, but we feel we're a big part of what kind of really got things started here and sort of tied people into watching it. It's exciting, you know, it's nice to be, like anybody who goes to a Trekkie convention and you were random red shirt number whatever in some episode, it's probably like, why do they still want to meet me? And they just do. I've been at some conventions, comic book ones, and certain ones where I see the random Star Wars characters that they had, 2 lines, or or just the most random things, and they're still there, but it's like a lineup out the door to get a signature because it's just to meet someone that was in Star Wars, the original, or that was in the first season of Star Trek. It's fabulous.
What I just watched on, I believe it was Netflix last week, was the behind-the-scenes documentary on the making of Galaxy Quest.
Oh yeah.
And if you haven't watched it yet, you gotta watch it because it's amazing. A good friend of mine, Jed Reese, was one of the aliens in the show, and he would tell us stories about it. And they reiterated the stories of the documentary, and he's in it as well. It's kind of neat hearing it from other people's perspectives. But I mean, they go on. The directors and the creators of that movie, the actual movie, wanted to make a show that didn't mock fandom, because the heroes of that story were the fans that, use the communicators to relay the information that whenever they were signed, they rescued everything. They were the heroes of the show, and that was really cool.
Do you remember when remember the night, I think for the first year, I think I was the one that reached out to you about coming, right? I think
Probably,
Do you
yeah.
remember when we got Horikawa? I was your fanboy. I was so excited. I sent you a DM and I said, we got Horikawa. And you're like, really? And I was like, we're gonna have 3 Vegetas. I was very excited.
That was
fond memories of
that panel was amazing. I think that's probably a highlight.
Me
Any
too.
convention I've been at, you were running that panel. We were sitting up there. We did KamehaCon.
You did the Big Bang Attack.
Big Bang Attack.
Yeah.
We and then it was a room 4 times this size without an empty seat. It seemed
Almost
like
3,000
it was
people.
it was insane. And I was like, I remember Simon looked at me. He's like, put the mic down. He's like, this is crazy, right? This is not. He's like,
He sent me a text as we were afterward, and he said this was an unbelievable moment I'll never forget. That was beautiful, man. That was pretty fun. I'll never forget that.
Let's maybe over here.
Yeah, I do too.
Hi. Yeah.
to do. As Goku and Vegeta. You know what? There's mine is kind of a combo because I like of course, it's over 9,000 has created a life of its own, but I love the visual of the "You Won't Escape My Wrath" when he's just. It's funny. I've watched it recently a couple times myself, and it almost gives me some goosebumps when I'm like, this. He is. I don't know how. I was channeling some anger there. I don't know what's going on about how badly he wanted to kill. I wasn't allowed to say kill then. Gohan. It was that one that "You Won't Escape My Wrath" is probably one of my favorites of that, sort of from memory, because he's just livid, absolutely livid when he bursts on the water.
But I'm guessing when you saw the animation when you were first shooting it, that's where you kind of got the idea to go that hard on it, right?
Yeah, well, they'll usually run the scene first, so you don't wreck your voice, because we're always sort of timing things. To me, it's kind of like music. I'm sort of thinking beats in my mind, and I'm kind of mouthing it when I'm looking at the dialogue. I'll watch the Japanese first, and I'm like, this, you want to get then I'm like, oh, it's a little longer than that. Try and remember that for when, okay, now we're going to record one, and then go back in. So now I've seen it. And they usually want to show you the visual so you know what the face looks like. You're like, and I'm like, he is really choked. He is really mad here. So I've got to be probably the most mad I've ever been at that point, and that's why that's a pretty fun one for me.
For me, favorite Goku line was probably the one that Danny just brought up. That tub of lard was a good warm up, because I remember looking at the dialogue on the page, and I would talk to them in the booth, and I go, "Oh, we're gonna go with tub of lard?" And then they're like, hold on. And they're all you see behind the glass is, yeah, we're gonna go with tub of lard. If I lend that same question to Rolf, there's sites dedicated to Rolf quotes. There's like rolfquotes.com. I'm not
So
kidding.
many of
And I visited them and I laugh all over again. One of the ones that destroyed me, and it still does to this day, was
Do not burn the candle at both ends, as it leads to the life of a hairdresser.
I still don't know what it means. But I love the line.
Those Cartoon Network writers were all in one back then. They were all in one.
They had it.
All those shows were great.
My buddy Joe's probably freaking out.
Okay, go for it.
They'll be cussing and whatnot. So when you guys did y'all ever make like a rated R version of like going through the motions of when you see your mind, it's like, oh, what I'm just gonna go ahead and drop it.
I did, because we would do, and I don't think they kept any of it, but we did some terrible bloopery R-rated stuff that some of, the director would say, Brian, just for fun, can you say, ma, ma, ma? I know there's kids in here, so I'm not gonna, but he would tell me they would, tell me to say something terrible. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And we'd all laugh when we play it back, and it probably got, the engineer, he's probably told, delete that right away before he gets anywhere. But yeah, we would do that kind of stuff all the time.
I think like almost every actor has a moment like that where you say something just for fun.
All the time.
Everybody.
I kind of wish that we could keep those ourselves, but the studios and the Toei, nobody wants that kind of stuff getting out. Sometimes it does. So it's usually for fun, and they're like, and we're usually like, okay, can you get rid of that now? We don't want that to escape the booth.
And a lot of it, swearing happens when you're messing up a line and it's take 14 and you're swearing at yourself because you're not getting it right.
You would not believe in Vancouver, we do a ton of preschool shows and younger kid shows, like the Strawberry Shortcakes and the My Little Ponies and all those. There's a lot of shows like that. Polly Pocket, Barbie stuff. They are the worst. When you get in those rooms, I think because you're doing such saccharine, sweet stuff, and you got a bunch of adults that are just ready at a certain point. It's like entropy. It just goes downhill, and people start swearing and saying the most crazy stuff. Usually in those sessions, it's always preschool sessions. Never recorded, but behind the scenes, it is dirty.
I would love to hear that.
Questions? How about Goku right over there? What a good choice, right?
Okay, so Goku and Vegeta have been everyone's heroes since we were kids. Who are some of your heroes when you were younger?
Wow, that's a good question.
He-Man.
For me, I started out my career doing stand-up comedy. So I remember being really young watching like the Carol Burnett show and the Rich Little show, and I used to stay up late and sneak into the back of the TV room where my dad was watching like Benny Hill, but it was because it was a British, really risque little comedy show. Yeah. But I would be to the back of the room and try to sneak, watching the show until he figured it out. I'm like, got the bag. But I was fascinated by comedians growing up, and then in the '80s and all that, the comedy explosion. So I the guys the Paul Reiser, Jay Leno's, Jerry Seinfeld's at the time. These were my heroes.
I didn't really have heroes in TV when I was younger. I took a theater class in grade 9 and really loved the theater teacher. First off, no, it was grade 10. Grade 10. First off, she was super cute. That was part of the thing. It was the first time I ever had a cute teacher. I was like, wow, she is amazing. I want to be an actor. So that sort of started my interest in theater. And then shortly after that, I saw a movie in a theater. We only had one theater in the small town that I grew up in. I grew up on a thoroughbred racehorse ranch. It's so funny, I've probably been around horses and most of the people here in Texas, but I grew up on a thoroughbred racehorse ranch in the interior of British Columbia, the province that I'm from. Not far from Vancouver, where I live now, about 4 hours away. But so I worked on a farm, so you just don't get out much. But I got to a movie, and the movie that is still my favorite movie. I know it's got some things that don't quite click today, but it just takes me back and made me want to be an actor. Any guesses what that movie might be? Based on my no.
That's a good guess.
It's a good guess.
Young Frankenstein.
Not connected to the horse aspect at all. Let's see, I graduated in 1987 and it came out before then. Graduated high school.
Back to the Future?
There it is.
Wow.
Back to the Future. I saw Back to the Future, and I saw this guy, and I was told this Michael J. Fox guy was from British Columbia. He was from where I'm from. He was this kid from not far where I live right now. I said, that kid is the guy that's the star of this movie, and it's such a big show, which I loved. And I thought, I could do that because he's like me, and he's someone from a place where like I'm from. So it kind of legitimized something. I thought maybe I could do that. So he was the first person and that movie that made me think I could act, and it led me down that path, was seeing that movie, Back to the Future.
One thing I got to throw in is, why I forget this, Peter Sellers was probably my favorite on-screen comedian, character person of all time. I remember seeing the movie The Party,
Which is
and it's
amazing.
You know, today it's probably be very politically incorrect at the time. The thing was, he would turn into a character and you wouldn't blink twice because he was so committed to it. But in The Party, it's, you know, to this day, I just die. So funny, and he would transform, and that's why I've always been fascinated with characters, whether it be voice characters or on-screen characters. Anytime I can play something completely different than myself, that's what I'm drawn to the most, because of performances like this.
Good question, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see, man, remember your game?
All right, so
Yeah, front with the black with those, I think that we're looking at.
all right.
You pick one.
So
Yeah,
I remember the first year at KamehaCon, like Danny said, that it was VIP day that Friday, and there was not an empty seat. Maybe like 2 rows in the back were empty, but still. I asked the guy next. There was like 2 guys next to me. One was from out of country, one was from out of state. And I asked them, like, if this was anywhere else, would it have mattered? They said no, immediately. And that's dedication that I'd like to see, and it's because of y'all. So thank you.
Hey, thank you, yeah, thank you. We always try to make sure that we let you guys know that none of these conventions, none of this stuff happens. It's fans first, not us first. I always love to think, well, it's because you guys these things happen. No, it's not. It's because of you guys that these events happen. These are fan run, that's how they started. I mean, they become sort of businesses after a while, but they always start with the seeds of a fan wanting to put together an event for people. Sometimes it might just be, hey, we have an anime club. There's 20 of us. Oh, now there's 100 of us. Let's put together an event. Maybe we can invite one voice actor to our anime club thing. 400 people show up. Then it's 1,000. Then it's bigger. And so it starts with the seeds of the work that you guys do. And we appreciate it because we love coming out and having these kind of conversations with everybody. So thank you. That's you guys.
And
Absolutely.
everyone involved in KamehaCon is a fan, legit. Like, they watch the show, we talk about it. It's not always about business. Sometimes it's about, hey, you see what happened last week? That's how it was. It was super.
Yeah, yeah. We got time for a few more. Let's see what we can squeeze in here. Who has it? Yeah, in the front there.
Knowing what you know about the characters now, you can go back, like re-record, you keep the voice the same as like the ocean dub, or you put a different spin on it now?
Yeah, that's a great question. When you know things about characters, whether or not you go back and change things. I think I'd probably, because I was a really new voiceover performer. I had one series, it was a G.I. Joe series, which was my very first series before I got Vegeta and Dragon. So that was the first dubbing anything. So I was really awkward at dubbing and trying to come up with how to do, and it's hard to be free to act when you're just trying to figure out the technical aspect of dubbing. It's really technical. Start on time when the beeps end on time, try to pause when they pause so the lip flaps don't look terrible. So it's this technicality that takes you away from just being able to say the lines for that scene, which is what we can do in prelay, which is where we record before it's animated. Here's the line, I would say it a certain way. You can't do that. You can't say it the way you want to say it. You have to say it the way it fits. So that's really tricky, but I've got better at putting the proper acting notes into something and also making it fit over 30 years of doing it. So I think I'd just be better at that. I think my acting would be better if I went back and did it. I don't know if I'd change the voice. In fact, I don't think I probably would. It might have to be a little bit deeper because voice is dropping in pitch a little bit, so he might sit a little bit lower, but I don't want to step on what Sabbath's doing, so I wouldn't go that low. And I would probably adjust it a little bit. And in fact, if Kai ever does come out, the version that we did, I think you'll find it is more of a, Vegeta's more here as opposed to, very really early Vegeta was, Kakarot, you fool! It was quite a bit higher up. It's a little bit lower than that in Kai. But I would adjust that.
I mean, for me, I took over for me and Corlett, so they kind of brought me in because me and Ian would audition against each other often for different roles, radio commercials, what have you. So they were kind of in the same range. So I don't think I would do anything different either, because I was trying to emulate Ian, or they were directing me to emulate, I should say, Ian's performance, yet adjusting it with the Japanese. So they were trying to land me somewhere in between there. And we landed where we landed, but going back, I think they probably direct me into the same area, I think.
Thanks. Where should we go? How about way in the back with the ball cap? Is that a cap baseball?
Yeah.
Alright, so I have a question for Peter.
Yes.
Now, if Ralph was able to go Kyle King, could you tell me how it would sound?
If you would go,
Kyle
Red,
King.
red aura.
Like all the way to 20?
Like from like,
Victor, get ready. Kaioken! I'm still there, boy!
How about did you ever with an X on your hat? Yeah, I saw that hand there.
So, kind of like you had the luxury of being Vegeta again in Super. Peter, would you have loved to have gotten a phone call saying, hey, will you play Goku Black? And how would you have changed your voice to make him more evil?
Next question.
Evil Goku.
You're evil, Goku.
wow.
You have to come up with it right now.
No, I would have loved to. I would have loved to. I would have said yes in a heartbeat. Wasn't given that opportunity, unfortunately. And like I said, I would have loved to. And it was also great to see Brian doing his thing. I think both of us coming back in the two different forms would have been awesome. Not just for us, I think for fans too. I think the reaction to Brian was great. And I think the reaction to whether it was myself or Ian coming back would have been a great response as well. But I don't want to kill the momentum. I don't want to attempt it because I didn't get the opportunity to do it. So I mean, out of respect for the person who did do it, I don't want to sit here and try to portray that I could do it better or different. So I'll just leave it at that. No, you don't have to apologize.
Let's see, we got time for a couple more. Okay, let's go in the blue and yeah, right there. Yeah.
Okay, so quite a few times in North America we've had like additional anime booms. Like in the late 2000s, you had Naruto and Death Note, and then like mid 2010s, you had stuff like Attack on Titan and My Hero. Did you ever see your jobs for like? Were you getting more and more anime jobs like around those boom periods, or was the volume about the same?
Not as much for us. Anime has changed a lot in Vancouver. Ocean Studios used to do a lot more Japanese anime than they currently do. They still do a lot of dubbing, but surprisingly, it's a lot of German and French shows. Like they do all the Asterix and Obelix movies. You've probably seen some of those on Netflix. Those are dubbed at Ocean Studios. I love those comics when I was a kid, but they don't do as much anime because things. I think it's a little more expensive probably where we are than in some of the non-union markets like Texas and Atlanta and stuff that's down here. So a lot more work of that has been done in the States than in Vancouver. There's a few shows that are done up there, but not to the extent that it was in the 90s and early 2000s.
We got time for one more.
We got time for one more question.
One more. Let's see. The highest arm is probably going to win this one out. Okay. Oh, hey. Ooh. There's so many arms.
That dude back there jumped up.
We'll go the very, very back, so just to make sure we don't ignore the back of the room.
Alright, this one's for Brian.
Yeah.
So on planet Potiphar, when the secret water took over Vegeta's body and form, did that literally make him the original Vegeta again, since you were the original voice actor first?
Yes. Hey guys, this was super fun. Thanks so much for coming out and putting up with us.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be back.
And thanks to Danny for
Thank you, Danny.
sitting in with us.
This was fun.
Yeah.